do you catch a monkey? Does anybody know how to do that? Did you know that's a problem in a lot of the worlds? The monkeys are a little cantankerous. Our ministry partners in Africa, we got to watch out for these monkeys. They're like the squirrel of Africa. They're just all over the place, and they're taking the clothes off the clothesline. They're stealing food, all these different things. So how do you catch them? Do you know? Well, this is how they do it. They take coconuts, they hollow it out, they put a little hole through the coconut, and they kind of snap it back together. They put an orange inside of it. Monkeys love oranges. And they reach their hand in they put the hole just small enough they can reach your hand and grab the orange. But if they don't let go of the orange, they can't get their hand out. And they get so focused on that orange that they can just come right up next to them and just kind of throw a net over them and capture them and then, release back into the wild there, and it's no big deal. It's kind of like this, all right? So you see this mason jar, and there's inside of it a golf ball. How many of you guys know that I really like to play golf? Did you know that? That's like a real passion for me. So I can get my hand in here if I squinch it up nice and easy, okay? But if I grab a hold of that golf ball, is my hand coming out? It's not coming out, is it? Because I'm so focused on this one particular thing that I lose track of all these other things, and I'm in prison. I'm in prison. Today's topic is lust. Aren't you glad you got up early and, shoveled the drive and all the different things? Because we're going to talk about lust today. Lust is an insatiable craving to gratify your fleshly desires, good desires that God gave into you, but seeking to satisfy the legitimate desire say the last two words, in a illegitimate way. And whenever we do that, we're in prison. And when we're in prison, Satan can come up and he can do all kinds of terrible things to us. Now, we can lust after money and possessions. We can lust after food. We can lust after prestige and recognition. Today I'm going to talk about sexual lust. And if that's something you have no problem with, then you just kind of substitute money or prestige or whatever you're lusting after, because we all lust after something. One pastor once said it this way: it's depressing to realize that most of us are like the rest of us, okay? And so we all struggle with this particular one, and we're going to really take some time to jump into it. Many people have bought into the age-old lie that very simply says this: it's okay to look, just don't touch. Have you ever heard that before? That's a lie. It's garbage, okay? I can just look as long as I don't touch. Do you know that whenever you look, it's action in rehearsal? Let me say that again. When we look and don't touch, it's action in rehearsal. We rehearse the idea of inappropriate actions over and over and over in our minds. It's only a matter of time before we begin to act out those things in our lives. James knew this very well. James, the half-brother of Jesus, wrote about this in James chapter 1, verses 14 through 15. He says, "But each person is tempted when they are dragged away by their own evil desire." I really want that orange. I really want that golf ball. And they're enticed, and they're trapped. Then, after desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin. And once that process has begun, then it's the eventuality is the sin is going to grow, and it's going to give birth to, say the last word, it's going to give birth to death. And I'm sorry that this is a hard topic, but we really need to understand what Satan's playbook is with us. He wants to entice, and once he's got us snuck in there a little bit, he wants to kill us. He wants to harm your soul. He wants to separate you from God. And we don't want to do that, okay? We don't want to do that. And here's the problem, right? When you get trapped, you start to rationalize. And you think, well, this is just a good, normal way to live with a jar stuck to my hand. Like, this seems like a wise thing to do. We rationalize, but here's the problem. One little thing, one little peak leads to something else, leads to something else, leads to something else. People call it the adult entertainment industry, as if that's like a classy way to say it, right? Pornography leads to more pornography, which leads to violent pornography, which leads to child pornography, which leads to human trafficking, which is a massive, massive problem in our world today. We're going to have a whole day, February 27th. I would love to invite you online and in person to that. We're going to call it Rescue Sunday. We're just going to get involved in this and really try to make a difference. But it can be a real massive issue. Now, I'm 49. So when I was in my teenage years, we did not have the internet. We did not have cell phones. We didn't even have electricity. No, I'm just teasing. Like, it was just kind of, it was a little bit older, right? Okay? If we wanted to look at pornography, we had to get my friend to distract the guy, the store owner at the gas station. The person would grab the Playboy, put it in a backpack. We'd run to some place where nobody could see us, and we'd look at it. And then we'd be like, what are we going to do with this Playboy? Who's going to hide it? Where are we going to put it? That's how it was. If you have a smartphone, would you just pull it out, please? Just go ahead and pull it out if you would. Those who are watching online, just go ahead and pull out your phone. Okay? Do you know how easy it is to get to pornography on your phone? You don't have to distract anybody. By the way, don't do that. Okay, I'm not saying like go there now, okay? Okay? Do you have children? Raise your hand. Do your children have a smartphone? Raise your hand. Are you watching what they're looking at? You wouldn't have dinner with your kids and say, here's a hamburger, here's a hot dog, here's the baked beans, here's some mashed potatoes, and here's rat poison. Hope you don't stumble into the wrong thing. I'm going to give you a bunch of stats that are going to be troubling, and then we're going to go to the scripture, which is going to be helpful. Is that fair? Here's the first stat. This is according to Hartford Healthcare Report, October 26, 2020. Recent studies indicate 90% of teens have viewed porn online, and 10% admit, and how many teenagers admit to like really doing something wrong, to daily use? This is partly due to the increased smartphone usage amongst children and adolescents, with elementary age smartphone ownership rising over 50% in recent years. The last 2 years, it's been remote learning, so you've given kids tablets and computers with online things that they're way smarter than you realize, and they're getting into things that are very, very difficult. The top porn site, I'm not even going to acknowledge what it is, just because I don't want to give them any credit, but it's the third biggest bandwidth consuming company behind Google and Netflix. It's number one. It's number 3. Here's where it's number 1. This site has more daily visits than Netflix, Amazon, and Twitter combined. Now, some levity. When I was we were married a few years, and my brother was 3 years behind me. We had a family meeting. My mom and dad, I think it was Christmas or Thanksgiving or something. They were like, hey, we need to have a meeting. We got to talk about this. I was like, well, what is it? And they were like, well, you know that pornography is really rampant on the internet. And my dad said, every third click is pornography. And we said, Dad, we understand how the internet works, but we're pretty sure. No, he's like, every third click. There's a stat that says every third click. Now, of course, we've had all kinds of fun with my parents over the years by saying, Dad's on the computer. I'm like, hey, Dad, watch that third click. Naked woman's going to appear. Watch out. The first click is okay. The second one, maybe. But the third click, whammo, there it is. Dad loves his phone. My mom and dad are watching right now, and they would, of course, deny all of this, but that's what they said, and we've teased them about it for years. And you know what? Thank God for good parents who, when we were grown adults, decided we need to address this. Even if it's awkward and unusual, and even if it's difficult, we're going to address it. If you have children, you should have apps on your kids' phones. Man, if I was you, I wouldn't even give them a phone. But if you're going to do that, and I realize, well, the world's the world, and we got to do it. Here's 2 that we would highly recommend. Bark, which is a watchdog app, so you can see what they're seeing. You can be very careful about that. And Family Safe. You might want to take a picture of that on the screen if you don't have that on your kids' phones already, okay? Because here's the thing. Boy, goodness gracious. It's a difficult time to live in for our kids. This is a difficult time to live in for adults. U.S. Department of Justice. U.S. Department of Justice, okay? This isn't Nate in the Bible. This is the government, okay? It says, never before in the history of telecommunications media in the United States has so much indecent and obscene material been so easily accessible by so many minors in so many American homes with so few restrictions. You might think, no big deal, Nate. Come on. Take it easy. It's just a little bit of porn. It's just a little bit of poison. It's not going to make that much of a difference. New York Times told a story of a 34-year-old woman who discovered that her husband had a porn habit. She said, how can I compete with hundreds of anonymous others who are now in our bed in his head? She said, our bed is crowded with countless, faceless strangers where once we, my husband and I, were intimate. The fantasy world of pornography is like a big carnival pulling in every day, pulling people in every day with promises of great thrills, only to place them in a lonely roller coaster of excitement and then emptiness, massive emptiness, arousal and anxiety, massive anxiety. In fact, most people who are struggling with this live with this overwhelming fear that they'll be exposed. And they have a hard time dealing with their shame of the whole deal. It's just a really hard thing. Jesus spoke to it in Matthew chapter 5, verses 27 through 29, and he was pretty strong on this. He said, you've heard it said that you should not commit adultery. I think we would all agree that's not a good idea. If you're married, you shouldn't have sex with someone who you're not married to, okay? We need to kind of stay within the bounds that God has established. But I tell you that anyone who looks at a woman lustfully, anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart. It's a heart issue. It's a heart issue. It's not a physical issue. It's a heart issue. And then he gets a little wild and nutty. If your right eye causes you to stumble, say the next three words, gouge it out and throw it away. I don't got any eyes left, right? And just to be clear, for those of you who are like, so I can look with my left eye? That's okay? It's like, no. Okay? It's better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. He's using a figure of speech called hyperbole, where you say something in an extravagant way to really get across the idea. He doesn't literally mean, so I got to say this because we're online, don't go home and pluck your eye out, okay? What he is saying is, do whatever you can to provide as many boundaries as you can, because this is going to hurt your heart, and it's going to hurt your spouse, and it's going to hurt you, and it's going to hurt others, and it's not I'm just looking, I'm not touching kind of a thing. God is the author and designer of sex. So here's the moment in the message that you're probably going to be uncomfortable, because I'm going to be uncomfortable. Because I'm going to read to you what's in the Bible. Did you know that God created it in such a beautiful way that it's like a physical thing, it's an emotional thing, but it's also a spiritual thing? Did you know that one of the 66 books of the Bible is completely devoted to the topic of sex between a husband and a wife? And it's graphic. And it's wild. I'm going to read you from the Song of Songs. If you want to go there and have a good time reading something great, just think about your spouse the whole time. But this is what it says. How beautiful you are, and how pleasant my love with such delights. Your stature is like a palm tree. It's hard for me to even say this out loud, okay? Your breasts are like clusters of fruit. I said I will climb the palm tree and take hold of its fruit. And I just got to stop right there because it gets way worse after that. That's the Bible. God said, here's this great gift I want to give to you. And I want you to enjoy it to the fullest. But there's got to be some boundaries. I don't want you to get outside of the boundaries and live in prison. I don't want you to be restricted. It took my family years ago. Caden graduated high school. Carter graduated 8th grade or something. I don't know. Maybe it was fresh. I don't know. Anyway, we went to Hawaii. It was a good excuse. We went to Hawaii. We did the road to Hana. Has anybody ever done the road to Hana? Ever experienced that? It's just the greatest thing in the world. Beautiful. If you think of like Jurassic Park, whenever they were like driving in, that's it. There's guardrails everywhere, but not on this side of the road to Hana. This is the backside that you're not supposed to go on. Yes or no? Did we go on that? Absolutely. It was spectacular. But the problem is no guardrails. And my oldest son, Caden, I was driving, and I just love to drive, and many people have accused me of being a bad driver. I don't pay attention. There was like waterfalls coming out of mountains. The ocean was on their side, and I was just like, look, guys. Caden was in the back seat. He was screaming at me for about an hour, like, Dad, we're going to die. We're going to die. We're going to stop looking around. There's like a 500-foot drop over here. We understand that. It's like this beautiful gift that God has given to us, but there's good boundaries inside of it. Rivers are really wonderful until they get outside of their banks. I grew up near the Mississippi River, and there's been a couple floods in my lifetime that have just destroyed homes and towns and other things, because it's like this beautiful thing as long as it's within the right parameter, but when it gets outside of that, severe damage. So how do we deal with lust? Okay, I'm going to give you 4, excuse me. It's going to feel like 10, but that's okay. I'm going to give you 4 action steps so that we can figure this out. Number 1, acknowledge your vulnerability. But among you there must not even be say the next word, hint. There must not even be a hint of sexual immorality or of any kind of impurity or of greed, because these are improper for God's holy people. It reminds me of the story of the wealthy couple They were hiring a chauffeur. And they had 4 applicants. They called them in together on this balcony of their estate, and they looked down. They said, "This is where we're going to park the car. You notice there's like a wall over there. We just want to ask of you 4 applicants, how close do you think you could get to the wall without scratching the car?" And the first guy said, "Well, I could get within a foot. I'm pretty sure, just right there." And the second guy said, "I could get within 6 inches." And the third guy said, what do you think he said? It's half and a half? 3 inches. What do you think the fourth guy said? It's a little bit of a trick. Say it again. Y'all hit it? Yeah, he could have said that. You know what the fourth guy said? He said, "I'm not going to park your car by the wall. I'm going to get it as far away from the wall as I possibly can." That's how we should approach this. Okay? We shouldn't try to think, where's the line and how close can I get to it? We should say, boy, the Bible says, don't even have a hint of sexual immorality. Let's get as far away from that line as we possibly can. Let me encourage you to find accountability. That's the greatest thing that you can do. Alcoholics Anonymous says this. I got ahead of myself. I want to make sure I get it. You're only as sick as your secrets. Let me just say that again. You're only as sick as your secrets. So here's what I'd encourage you to do. Find somebody that you can trust, that is honorable, that will keep a secret, but also allow you to have accountability, and then ask 2 questions, you to them, them to you. Hey, has your interactions with the opposite sex been honoring to Christ? And then, are you getting close to a line? And let's try to stay as far away from that as we can. Or are you overstepping a line? I didn't put this question up there, but the question that I like to ask when I'm in accountability with other people is, and did you lie to any of these questions today? Okay, that gives you an opportunity to kind of really circle back. Just acknowledge your vulnerability, be careful, and stay away from those lines that can get us into trouble. Number 2, be aware of the consequences. Be aware of the consequences. Job chapter 31, verse 1, he was thinking ahead on this. He said, there's consequences to this. So he said, I made a covenant with my, say that next word. I made a covenant with my eyes to not look lustfully at a young woman. I made a covenant with my eyes. I decided I'm going to really be aware of this. I'm going to make a decision ahead of time of how I'm going to live. We often, when I was in student ministry, and I'll say kind of a brief, I'm not going to go there because that's going to be, I better just stay away from it. So I'll come back to that. You can get it in the edit notes later. But anyway, I made a covenant with my eyes not to look lustfully at a young woman. I would say in student ministry that, guys, you can't make your decisions in your sexual relationship, how you're going to handle that in the moment. You need to make it like well before, because in the moment, your desires are going to overcome you. It's just a challenge that way. And so I often joke, so I'm going to go ahead and say it, it's like, youth ministries, you're trying to tell the kids to keep their pants on. Adult ministry is not that much different, okay? It's just kind of the same thing. But we've got to be aware of the consequences, and the consequences are pretty significant. My brother, Jeremy, I talked to him about this week. He said, yeah, you can tell the story. They were driving to a high school basketball game one time, he and his friend, and they brought some fireworks with them, and they thought this would be fun to light fireworks, shoot them out the window as they're driving, high school kids. Then they thought, it would be more fun to shoot fireworks at cars as we go by. So they did that all the way to this basketball game. They had a couple people try to chase them down, and they evaded them, and they got to the basketball game, and they thought, these guys might have figured out who we were. Let's park kind of over here on the side, and let's take the fireworks and let's hide them. Let's put them in place where, just in case we got in trouble, we'd not be able to figure that out. Well, they had a glove box, and the glove box had a key, so they opened up the glove box, they put it in there, they locked it up. They're like, we're safe. Well, in the hurry and the rush of that, they left the actual ignition key in the car, and they locked the car, and they went to the game, and the fireworks were in good shape, but the ignition key was in the car. Well, in those days, you had to call the police to get them to come and unlock your car. So the police show up, and they're like, hey, we've been looking for you guys. You guys have been lighting off fireworks and shooting them at people. And oh, no, we didn't do that. No, we didn't do that. Well, make the story even better. My brother had talked to my mom and my sister, who was in in elementary school at the time, and said, hey, we got our keys locked in the car. And they said, no problem, we'll get the police. So there's my mom, there's my sister, And there's my brother getting put into the police car to go down to the police station and have a little talk about these particular things. They weren't thinking about the consequences at the moment. In our online studio moment right before the message, Dana had a really good point. She said, anything that we'd ever want to do, is this worthy of being put on the New York Times? What we're watching, what we're looking at, if we're comfortable with it being front page news for everybody to see, then we're probably okay. But if we're not, we're probably not. Number 3, avoid all areas of temptation. Okay? Avoid all areas of temptation. If you're struggling with this and you've got a computer or you got a phone and you're struggling with it, you're like, Nate, how do I avoid using my computer or my phone? I need that for my work and for my life and all those different things. And I would just say, the previous screen we talked about, I made a covenant with my eyes. There's an actual website called covenanteyes.com. Maybe it's covenanteyes.org. It's one of the two. It's Covenant Eyes, and there it is. There it is. And so it just gives you all the information. How do you quit? How do you live your best life? How do we break the cycle? How do we, just getting away from that shame and getting away from these usage issues? Why am I here? I'm the one struggling with it. I got a friend who's struggling with it. I'm a man who's struggling with it, woman who's struggling with it, all these different things. How do we defeat porn together? There's different things that we can do, different places that we can go. And here's all the things of like what it's going to take from your life, what it's going to give to your life, how you're going to defeat it. We want to help you. And by the way, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee. So I'm putting the message together, and we're putting together this little thing, and I thought, you know what? I don't have that on my computer or on my phone. And it'd be silly for me to ask you to do that and for me not to do it. So guess what I did this week? I signed up for Covenant Eyes. And when you do that, you have to put an accountability partner on there. So you're saying, hey, listen, everything that I'm watching, I'm going to have an accountability partner. I'm going to provide their email address, and they're going to see it. They're going to see anything that's inappropriate. It's going to flag, and it's going to go right to them, and then I got to explain to them what I did. Anyone want to take a guess as to who I put as my accountability partner? I put my wife. So if I'm dead in the next 2-3 weeks or something like that, you'll know what happened, right? It's good life insurance. So anyway. We gotta address this. We gotta address it. We gotta be serious about it. And when we are, God's gonna bless that. He's gonna bless it in really amazing ways in your life. He's gonna provide some great fulfillment for you when we address this desire in a legitimate way within his boundaries as opposed to the illegitimate way. We got to ask for his help. This is a prayer that I pray every day. It's known as the prayer of Jabez. It's 1 Chronicles chapter 4, verse 10. It says, oh, that you would bless me indeed, God, that my life would line up with what you want me to do, and I could just be a blessing to others. It's not, oh, would you bless me with money and all these different things. No, it's, oh, would you allow me to be a blessing to others? Would you enlarge my territory, allow me to do more for you? That your hand would be with me. We need your presence at all times. And oh, I love this next little phrase. And that, say the rest of it with me, and that you would keep me from evil. You didn't say that very good. Let's try it again. Here we go. And that you would keep me from evil. Why? So I don't cause you pain, God. And I don't cause other people pain. And I don't cause myself pain. Let's invite the creator of the universe into this process. See what he has to say. In every battle and every struggle and every difficulty, you're going to need to know who your adversary is. You're going to need to know how Satan is going to attack you. And I want to highly recommend these two books, whichever side of the if you're a man or a woman, because it's looked at completely different. And I know if the ladies are here and they're like, oh, Nate, you've just taking this from a man's perspective, and that's probably true, and I want to apologize for that, but it's the only perspective I know, and I feel like I really needed to address it. Sexuality is completely different, I think, in women. It's obviously physical, but there's different ways that we get to that. Listen, I would highly encourage every single person to read these particular books. Why? So that you know your adversary and how he's attacking you, and you know the trigger points of how to overcome that. Okay, it's the same author, both sides. It's just an amazing, amazing resource. Countless people in our church family have gone through these particular books and just had unbelievable success as a result of this. So please, please, please know your adversary. Be aware of how they're going to tempt and how you're going to have to be able to overcome that. And here we go, number 5. This is the good part here, okay? Allow God to give you say it with me, the victory, okay? Allow God to give you the victory. Don't lose heart. Don't lose heart over some setbacks. Please learn from your mistakes. But I'll also tell you, one of the things that you can do is you can receive God's forgiveness. I want to read this scripture multiple times. David, in Psalm chapter 32, verse 5, said, "Finally I confessed all my sins to you, and I stopped trying to hide my guilt." I'm going to read that again. Finally, I confessed. I was open. I was honest. All of my sins to you. And all means all. And I stopped trying to hide my guilt. I said to myself, I will confess my rebellion to the Lord, and, say the next 3 words, you forgave me. Say the next 4 words, all my guilt is gone. So David had trouble, pretty significant trouble in his life. He was married, and everybody was off to war, and he was walking on his top of his palace one night, noticed a naked lady bathing. It was their version of HBO at that time, right? And so he was like, that looks good. So he sent for her. She came over. He had a sexual relationship with her. She became pregnant. He tried to cover it up. He sent her husband to the front of the line in the battle to be killed, and he was. Do you think he struggled with guilt? Think he struggled with difficulty? You think he felt pretty bad about what he'd done? I bet you he did. Massive, massive mistakes. But here he is, and these are his words saying, I finally confessed all my sins to you, and I stopped trying to hide my guilt. I said to myself, I will confess my rebellion to the Lord, and you forgave me. What's the punctuation after that word, you forgave me? Exclamation mark. All my guilt is gone. One of my favorite authors is Mark Batterson. He just is a great author. I really, really like his books. I'm reading one right now, and he was talking about being on a panel discussion with a friend of his. His name was Bob Goff. Bob's a really great Christian author as well, and they were talking about forgiveness, and Bob told this story, and who even thinks like this? It's just an amazing thing. But he told this story that when he found out his wife was going to have a little girl, he thought in his brain, she's going to probably mess up down the road. I want to make sure that she just knows that I love her and that I forgive her and that we're always going to have this relationship. I want to see the best in her. So he took a jar. Just by the way, I'm really sick of holding this jar in my hand, but I'm almost to the end where I'm going to get to be able to, if this is bothering you, it's really bothering me. My hand is sweaty and miserable. We're almost there. Okay. He wrote a note to his daughter that said, I know that you didn't mean to crash the car, but I just want you to know I love you and it's okay. I forgive you. And no matter what, you'll always have my love. He wrote that before she was born. He put it in a jar, he sealed it up, he buried it, and he made sure he knew the coordinates of where he buried it. His daughter is born. She grows up. She turns 17, 16, 17. She's driving around. Guess what she did? She crashed the car. He checked in on her. You okay? You okay? Everything's okay? She was so upset, so worried about it. He let her kind of recover from that, and then he gave her a shovel and coordinates. He said, go dig up a jar. I wrote something to you a long time ago. She digs up the jar, she opens it, and there's a note from her dad saying, I was guessing you might struggle with something. I'm guessing you might have some issues, but I just want you to know I've already forgiven you of that before you were born. And my forgiveness is clear today. That's what Christ did for you. before you were even born. He sent his son Christ to die. God sent his son Christ to die on the cross for you and for your sins so that you wouldn't have to be trapped. And you wouldn't have to walk around like an idiot with a jar on your hand for the entire thing. You can let go. Oh, it feels so good. Oh, my hand can work again. You can let go. And you can let God. One last time. I confessed all my sins to you. And I stopped trying to hide my guilt. I said to myself, I will confess my rebellion to the Lord, and you forgave me. All my guilt is gone.